It should be recording.
Oh, great. Alrighty. So good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, January 20th, 2022. And this public meeting of the Hope Community Public Charter School Board is now called to order. We will now call the roll to determine that we have quorum. Susan?
Here.
Thank you. Carrie?
Here.
Thank you. Austin?
Here.
Thank you. Neha?
Here.
Thank you. Sharifa?
Here.
Thank you. And I'm also here. Awesome. A quorum has been determined and we will now proceed with the business portion of the meeting. We have an agenda to review. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Sharifa. May I have someone second the motion?
This is Austin. I second it.
Thank you, Austin. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any-
in favor.
Great. Do we have any nays or abstentions? Awesome. So the motion is approved. Board members, we also have the minutes before us to review.
Yeah, Rebecca, this is Susan. I reviewed them both. I didn't have any
Thank-
suggested edits.
Awesome, thank you. So we have no corrections or additions to this. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve both minutes from December. Well, not necessarily December, technically from November that we would have approved in December and the December makeup meeting we had in January. So may I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Sure, this is Susan. I move that we approve both sets of minutes.
Thank you. All in favor of adopting the minutes, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Do we have any nays or abstentions? The minutes have been approved. So the minutes of the minutes that we just approved will be available online. And the minutes of this meeting will be approved at our February meeting. However, the recording will be online in less than 7 days based on the Open Meeting Act. Our goal is usually to have it up within 24 to 48 hours. So now today we will have, we'll hear updates from the Hope Tolson campus of PLA on the progress of the school.
So I see the first part is to break the norm. I don't know if Mike or Rachel was able to make it in this evening.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, we'll just scroll down. Christina, can you scroll down to their piece? I guess Melissa, I don't know if we want to tag team or we can't hear you, or maybe I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I didn't have my headphones plugged in all the way. So I know that we sent a recording already to the board to review this. This is a wonderful program, and I know Alexis is really a champion for this program as well. Break the Norm program, it comes in, it teaches leadership skills to all students within our school. And so we hope that you had a chance to watch that video. And so really, this was the piece that was shared through that. If you have any questions, we can definitely answer them. But I know as we were looking at building our brand and what does that look like going forward, so we put together a couple different options of what this possibly could look like for the school. And I know that will be here coming up in new business, but just taking some time to look at, we can impact by a couple of grades and grow it from there. We wanted to make sure we provided lots of different options that was under the 25,000 mark, so it wouldn't need to go through the RFP process. And then also just trying to be mindful of the budget. And this may not be something we can do this year, and that's okay too. But I know this was kind of, as we're looking at building our brand, what are some things that we can do to support Hope as we're building those pieces. And we're right in we've just began our re-enrollment, and this is another piece too, as we talk to families, if this is something we decide to do, that we can bring up as we're doing our recruitment efforts. So was there any questions from the board on this, or did everyone get a chance to see the video that was sent out?
I have no questions at this time, but I'll open the floor.
Melissa, I apologize. This is Susan. I did not view the video yet. I can
Okay.
do that.
It's pretty short.
Sure.
We could
Okay.
share it now. Actually, I think we should have enough time to do that.
Oh, okay.
Well, and I can share too that, I mean, one of the nice things about this program is that it impacts different grade levels. And I know with particularly our population right now of teachers learning so many new curriculums, one things that we did love about this too is that Break the Norm actually has their people come in. It would actually kind of go through like as a special cycle. So there was a lot of things too. We know our teachers right now, they have a lot on their plate. They've had a lot. We've put a lot on them through PLA. Miss Pella has been really championing that along with Miss Giles, getting all of those pieces ready. But this was something that we felt like could be really positive and uplifting for our families and our students, but also not add another additional layer to our teachers at this time. So kind of that piece. But I'm sorry, Rebecca, did you say something about the video?
Yeah, I was hoping we can perhaps view it at this time, considering that we may need to vote on it. So it will be helpful to, I think it'll be time well spent. I mean, just given that we still have a time frame to conclude the meeting, but I think it would be worth having the board members see it. And we have, I think, one or two potential board members, I mean, prospective board members who are visiting us today. And I
Oh,
think
fantastic.
as well.
Well, let me get to it real quick. Hang on. Let me see if I can pull it up quickly. I apologize. And actually, Alexis, do you want to talk about so maybe even before, if I think while I'm finding that to pull up that video,
Mhm.
maybe Alexis can pull up and talk about some different options that we discussed and how that, so looking at different amounts of funding, what would that look like and how could that apply to the school? So maybe Alexis can present that while I'm pulling those
Right.
up for you.
Absolutely. So just looking at the numbers, we had two options, a budget of 12K and then a budget of 24K. So I kind of tried to pull some numbers. So one option was 2 grade levels at 10 weeks. And let me take a step back. First of all, it would be the integrated school day. So I think Melissa mentioned that the Break the Norm leadership staff would come in and the scholars will be able to go through the program at least once a week with a facilitator based upon the curriculum. So it would almost be like an exploratory class, as if they were going to art or going to gym. So that's labeled under integrated school day. So that's kind of where I stayed under as far as the options are concerned. So the first option were 2 grade levels with 10 weeks. And so that came to 11,570. So that fit like right under that 12K budget. And then for option 2, again, 2 grade levels at 13 weeks came to 19,584. So that was under the 24K option.
Sorry, sorry to cut you off. Do you mind repeating the first?
Sure, absolutely. I'm trying to go as slow as possible too, so I know we're writing it down. But option 1, 2 grade levels at 10 weeks, $11,520.
Okay.
Option 2, 2 grade levels at 13 weeks, $19,584.
Alexis, the 19,000, that's also one time a week?
Yes, so it's 13 weeks. So it's I don't know if Melissa is looking at this, but there's a page on here that kind of breaks down. It's per scholar per class.
Got it, okay.
And I want to say no, I don't want to say it because I'm going to mess it up. But it is on this page.
Well, and actually, I think Christina's controlling so she
okay,
scrolls down
okay.
a couple pages. Yes, absolutely. You could see it a
Yeah,
little further.
18 or 20 per student per class hour. That's what I'm looking at. This is Susan, page 11. I just have it pulled up myself.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Sure.
For option 3, I have 3 grade levels at 13 weeks, $20,592. And the last option I had was 4 grade levels at 10 weeks, $22,320.
Okay, so my question is, for each of these options, what's the average price per week? Because it looks more economical, and this is just looking at it first, and I'm not a math whiz, to do the 10 weeks at 11,520. But typically, when you extend something, it should actually make the price cheaper. But it seems not to be that way with this program.
I think it had to do with depending on the grade levels and how many kiddos we cover too, because it's per kid, per class,
Yes.
you know what I mean? So I think that's kind of, it looks different, so it might seem like it should be cheaper, but it's because maybe in that proposal, we're actually reaching more students.
Oh, I see. Okay. Makes sense.
The other piece I was thinking about as far as time, I stuck up in 10 to 13 weeks due to the school calendar. So that's kind of where that number also came from.
And are these amounts additive to the budget, or was there something in there that was like not earmarked maybe for this particular program, or like, Eva, what's the impact?
Yeah, I think we need to go through in detail with Dan, but this was not budgeted. We are, however, do have some expense line items. Even if you look at the P&L to date that are under budget, but I think we'd need to do a review to see what we could offset. So if the amount is determined, we'll try and find an option for it.
How soon can we get some feedback on that? For some reason, I thought we had taken care of that part, but that'll be definitely helpful to consider before voting.
Yeah, I mean, if we know expenses are, I don't know that it was specifically identified for the offset, but we do know, and this may have been the conversation, that expenses in multiple categories are tracking below budget. So that's leaving us a little bit of room for additional expenses. I don't think Dan's on this one, but if we look at the financials, we can see that we are quite a bit under budget on the expense side year to date, which is a good thing.
Okay, that's
Would
helpful.
would you like to watch the video? Would that be helpful too? It's an 8-minute video. And if that's, I mean, if you're good with that, we can definitely play that for you.
Well, I don't want you to do it if it's just me. I mean, if everyone else has seen it, and I've gone through these slides some, so it's not like completely foreign. But I just didn't want you to, and when I leave with the impression that I watched it. So
No problem.
Susan, I haven't watched the video either. This is Austin, so it would be helpful to me as well.
Here, I agree. So Sharifa.
Perfect. Okay.
And Rebecca, maybe a thought to make sure that it doesn't drag on too far into the school year is it's an approval contingent on finding an offsetting reduction or something that we can tie it to.
great.
I can't hear anything. When you shared, Christina, I think you might have had to, there's a option at the bottom that says audio to play audio. I think it's on when you click on your share screen setting.
I just had this issue on the call I was on before I got on this call. It was a share screen, something about.
Christina, there's someone in the waiting room. I'm sorry. And my phone's ringing at the same time.
DC, so
There we go.
hello everyone with the Hope Tolson Board of Directors. My name is Rachel Sadoff and I am the owner of Break the Norm Leadership. I apologize that I'm not able to make your meeting in person today. I had some flight issues trying to get back to DC, so I am actually on a flight right now during your meeting. But I wanted to do a pre-recording to share a little bit with you guys about our programs, about the partnership that I've been talking to a couple of your staff about for the remaining of the school year. So Break the Norm Leadership, a little bit about us. If you want to learn a little bit about our organization, you can go to www.breakthenormleadership.com. So we are a youth leadership organization. So we partner with schools to bring youth leadership curriculum, as well as our staff come on site to teach and facilitate our curriculum on site. And one of the big benefits of that is it really takes the weight off of your teachers and instructors to learn more curriculum, but they are allowed to see the benefits of, you know, bringing youth leadership curriculum into the school day and allowing that learning to happen for the students, but then also allowing the staff, if they're interested, to participate in the activities that our staff do with the students, as well as, you know, just kind of learning that leadership material together. So a little bit about us. So we have a couple, if you look at our proposal, we've got a couple different links that talk about, you know, the true learning loss of the pandemic. I know that a lot of schools and students and faculty have really been challenged during this pandemic time. And it really talks about kind of how we work with our students to combat the learning loss during this pandemic time. So there's a link there. You can also find it on our website. And then you can also see pictures and learn a little bit more about different types of classes and different offerings that we as an organization have and how we partner with these schools. So Alexis and Melissa and I, when we chatted a little bit about how our organization might partner with the school, we kind of talked about two different things, but I think one of them has kind of become the highlight and interest mostly for your school, which is our integrated school day program. And that's really when we bring our curriculum during the school day. Every school offers our programs a little bit differently, but I think what Alexis and Melissa were thinking is offering our leadership program as a specials class for the 3rd through 8th grade students. And that's when we would come in with our curriculum, our staff, our materials. We would facilitate a class around the youth leadership curriculum, age appropriate to each different grade, and facilitate class for those students. So often we'll have a theme for that day, and then the different age groups will participate in different activities and different things to talk about that different leadership topic. So that's a little bit about that. So some of the values of our organization are listed here. We definitely take on an experiential learning process where we really believe in doing hands-on learning, engaging the kids, allowing them to be very self-directed in their approach to learning, because when learning is something that we're interested in, it's a lot more fun. And then really putting a strong emphasis on leadership and teamwork skills when we are working with our students. And sometimes that comes in different ways, social emotional learning. Sometimes that comes in building relationships, understanding what it means to be a leader, researching different types of leaders, self-reflecting on how we can be a better leader in our school, in our home, in our community, and then also learning about current leadership events, things like that. So like I said, we talked about the integrated school day. So integrated school day looks at is 18 per student per class. And so I think that we were kind of talking about a proposal that was 17 to 20 weeks for those students that are 3rd grade through 8th grade, where they would meet with us once a week or once every week and a half type thing for those different age groups, where we would be on campus, I believe, for 3 classes a day, 3 days a week, I believe was the last kind of discussion that we had talked about. we could do more if that is something that you guys wanted to do, but it would be a program that we were hoping to start in February and end at the end of the school year. I know that there was a few questions as a nonprofit, how that funding works. So in the past, when we work with our schools, we know that there's kind of a cap in terms of spending. And so what we've done in the past is we, that 25,000 cap, the way we've kind of combated that is we assign contracts for 24,900. And so it just stays right under that 25,000, and then we'll sign multiple contracts throughout the school year. So with this one, it would probably estimated take about 3 contracts for the school year for all of those students, but is definitely something doable that we can do. We've done it many times with several schools, and it works out keeping everybody, you know, legitimate in how we're doing things, and just keeps it easy for everyone. And then kind of just talking about our key deliverables, things like that. These are other programs that we offer that if you guys in the future were interested in some of those additional programs, our Empower DI program, our competition teams. Again, we work with those teams throughout the school year. They develop out projects during the school year while working as a team. So they're learning leadership and teamwork skills. And then they compete in a competition. We have our themed leadership classes, kind of like what we're doing right now with the integrated school day process. And then we also have customized programs that we do as well. And then there's a few examples of how we've worked and partnered with different schools in the past. And then a few testimonials from past students or schools, as well as organizations that have seen and witnessed our curriculum and how we run our programs, and are big advocates and supporters of the work that we do. So I hope this answers all of your questions. Feel free to message me. I told Alexis that if you have any questions, like you could probably start texting me at 5:40. That's when my plane lands, and I'll make sure to turn my phone on right away. That way, if you guys have questions, then I can answer those then. But otherwise, you can email me whatever questions you have as well. But otherwise, we as an organization are looking forward to partnering with Hope Tolson, and we hope we can make this a seamless transition. So hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Just to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, excuse me, just to piggyback on that a little bit too. I know she talked about doing grades 3 through 8 when we were hopeful in the beginning and talking through those things, but we since followed up and we had a conversation further about having other options. And so that's what Alexis was working with, our specific enrollment numbers to see what could we do at different levels. And that would be until the end of the school year. So what she shared with you earlier was for those different groups of students until the end of the school year. And it would not be for all grades 3 through 8 as mentioned in her presentation.
Right. Great, that was helpful. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, any questions, thoughts?
I almost hesitate to even bring it up, but as far as the constant potential hybrid learning, how does that work if we were to move forward with this? And, you know, we talked about, or they talked about, you know, being on campus. Is there any discussion on how that might look if we're pushing towards a hybrid model at a later date?
I can speak to a question that I did ask initially meeting with Rachel about the staff. And I didn't go, I just kind of asked on the high end, just to be clear, but I did inquire about their practices on vaccination, and practices on safety coming to the building. So their staff is fully vaccinated. And then the person that's coming in to meet with the scholars daily, they would basically follow the procedures that the building is following, where we're doing weekly testing. We would just make sure that we include that staff member in that piece. So that's kind of where it is. I have not, unless I missed something, I wasn't aware of a hybrid piece, but I kind of stuck to more so face to face, but I can inquire about the virtual piece and how they've done that in the past. If I spoke, I would be assuming. So on that.
I think we could almost ask for some sort of clause to be put in, because in all honesty, I feel like a lot of the actual projects she talked about were very hands-on, and not that there couldn't be, I mean, obviously we're doing everything modified when we have to have that virtual option. So I'm not saying there's not anything that we could do with this program if it was all virtual, but maybe that's something too that we need to consider if we were to have a contract. If she's unable to, present the program as it's intended, I mean, will we get a refund if, so I think that's something we definitely can explore, and Alexis will follow up with Rachel.
Yeah, and in this case, maybe the short-term contracts, or what she was talking about with the structuring of that may benefit us in that capacity, but I think it's important to bring up. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a question. This is Carrie. I know you guys have done your research, but I've only seen one presentation. Like, what do they bring that other companies you looked at, that they don't? I don't have anything to compare to say what's so special about this organization that others didn't have.
Share a little bit. So we did meet with another company, and one of the things that was a challenge as we looked at different organizations is that it's a lot of teacher training and it's a lot of teacher implementation. And not that that's not important, especially looking at big picture, but I think in this year specifically, with so many initiatives and new academics that we're rolling out to staff, it just felt like it's too heavy of a lift right now for our staff. And so I think was a couple of the deciding factors. This also just, we talk about leadership, that it's something you're born with. And I love that the philosophy behind this is that anybody can be a leader, and so I think that was one of the really important pieces behind us bringing this, or kind of feeling that this could be a potential program that could help brand the school. But I understand what you're saying. But I mean, again, this was just something that we thought could potentially be something for the rest of the year if that is the case. But also, we just wanted to be able to share that this for this year and where we are with the staff felt like it was the right fit and could be something that would benefit our students.
I will also add just some notes that I took. They do have more options as far as, even though we're looking at integrated school day, they have options that include after school, and even, if PLA was able to build that partnership, it also could include summer school. So that I thought was great. They had their own facilitators, as Melissa stated. So it really fit into the mold that Hope has right now. So again, taking that lift, but then there were some pieces that stood out to me as far as thinking outside of this school year. And Melissa kind of mentioned just earlier, looking at next school year. And as we're trying to get families to come in, and the mission and vision of Hope and how we're trying to build up scholars, there's a holistic approach that Break the Norm Leadership brings into play for our learners at Hope. So we have children that have been there from kindergarten, 8th grade, and they're going to high school. So we want to cultivate these leaders as well and not followers. So that's a big thing for me. There was a great lesson she shared about, and I'm sorry, it was a lesson she shared about the graffiti in DC and how that is artwork, and how challenging the idea of, people look at graffiti in DC as like trash, how do they do that? So they have conversations about what the meaning behind the art, and then having them do a lot of hands-on pieces that go with that. So that is kind of what stood out to me about the learners that we have today. and what their needs are. And then also where Hope is trying to get to. Again, that's break the norm is, I think if I were a parent and I saw that piece coming in, definitely would attract me to Hope. So I hope that
Alexis,
answers
are
it.
you aware of other schools in the district that are engaged with them? Are there a number of them, or are there a few? Yeah.
I do not have any like specific names of schools that are engaged.
They're at
Um,
Stella, but they're at about 2 or 3 tier 1 schools in DC.
Thank you.
They
Yeah.
are, okay.
Yeah, Stella, I think they just started with Friendship as well in one other school, but they're in a couple of schools in DC.
Okay.
On that PDF, they have Perry Street Prep.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
that's-
thanks.
yeah.
Thanks.
And
Awesome.
Perry Street, if I remember correctly, is now a tier 1 school as well.
Mhm. You said 2 grades, so will you do grade 7 and 8 or 6 and 7? Like, what's your plan?
I think initially to be intentional, the grades that Ms. Pella and Ms. Stone suggested at the top of their list were grades 5 and 7. So
Okay.
grade 7, because they're moving into 8th grade, and grade 5 to cultivate those leadership skills as they move into middle school.
Okay.
And then if we wanted to add more grades later on too, you have that's moving on. So we were thinking if we do grow the program later on down the road, it would be a good place to start.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I may make a suggestion from a funding standpoint. I think it's good that it's a part of the school day right now and it's integrated in the school day. And I'll be curious to know what the teachers will be doing at that time. Is it planning time? Is it free time? Are they co-facilitating? But from a funding standpoint, if it becomes an after-school program, it creates the opportunity to apply for the out-of-school time grants through, I think it's their office. So because they have funding for out-of-school time activities, so that can be an avenue. And I think their funding cycle might be coming up soon for the summer. And of course, at some point again for the next academic year, but I think they funded their program for this year. But so that's something to look into, out of school time grants. I did meet with the fundraising person and I mentioned this program to him, but I didn't draw the connection of, break the norm as a possibility, but definitely doesn't have to be that program only, but any program that's designed as an after school program. So I think this is an opportunity to really take an inventory of the different types of programs that are top-notch that we could put together as an after-school and a summer program and apply for that grant to fund it.
This is Austin. I totally agree with that, Rebecca. And I think that's a real differentiator when we're talking, of course, the branding and the lessons learned with throughout the day is good, but I think that's especially a huge tangible differentiator for parents and prospective scholars if we're looking forward to next year with the after school and potentially the summer school.
I will mention one of the things she talked about after school. How many days a week? Do you remember, Alexis? Was it 1 day a week or 2 days a week? That program, it came in like 6-week sections. So it was an after school. So just so they can kind of get a glimpse, but that's definitely something too that we can get more information on too about what that would look like. I know we were also just worried still with COVID. It's so, even our after school right now, it's so unpredictable. We do have a few consistent people, but it's random, just, with the way things are right now, and so that was that kind of that piece too. We knew if we had them in school that we had them there, but I do agree that would be a great additional piece that we could offer families.
So I was just taking, this is Susan, I was just taking another, I was looking back at the at the financials that Dan provided, that the summary. I don't know where we are today, but as of then, we were running about 60,000 ahead. So I take Eva's point. I think that there's room, I might not go for something that was really big, we can't see the future. We don't know. So maybe pilot it to something a little smaller first, budget for it for next year. I don't know.
I agree with Susan on that. I think that if we try a smaller program, as long as financially we have the room to spare, I think just personally, I would prefer that we try a smaller program. But it does sound like a pretty all around positive idea. I mean, it's attractive to potential scholars. In some cases, it could give us, after school, it could potentially lead to an after school activity. I think leadership training is, as an HR professional, incredibly important. You can never start early enough. So I like the sound of it. And if we have room in the budget to pilot, I think we should.
And I know Alexis just posted in the chat, actually, Rachel from Break the Norms is actually on with us now too. So if there's any questions you want to direct towards Rachel, she's here.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Rachel.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Did anybody have questions? I was here to just kind of answer any questions. I think you guys had a chance to watch a quick recording that I had sent you last time. But just here to answer any questions you guys might have about the program or whatnot.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for joining us this evening. The question was posed earlier about the schools that you're in DC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like which ones are we working in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we work with a variety of different schools, public charter schools, mostly, as well as independent schools. So we work a lot with Meridian Public Charter School. They're in Northwest DC. We work a lot with Charles E. Smith. We work with Sidwell Friends. We work with Mundo Verde. I was actually just working on a curriculum that we're doing. A new curriculum that we're doing for them, specifically on sex ed and sex empowerment type stuff for their 5th graders. We work with, oh my gosh, sorry, on the top of my head, so many. Perry Street Prep, Sella, and then we work with a few up in Philadelphia as well.
Great. So it's not like you're everywhere. So if we brought this on, it would still be something that would be kind of somewhat unique or different. I think that's great. I think the schools you listed are a really interesting collection of schools. That's awesome. Yeah. Also,
definitely. And we tailor our programs specifically to each school. So when a school comes to us and says, hey, we're interested in running your guys' program, usually one of the first questions we have is, tell us a little bit about what interests you guys. Are there specific things that you're noticing with your students that you're wanting to work on in terms of leadership? Are there specific topics that you're wanting to work on in terms of leadership with the kids? We're believers that leadership skills are life skills. So leadership is in all aspects of everyday life. And so that's where we really take the curriculum that we write and then wrap it around fun activities that interest the kids to make it fun and engaging for them.
Rachel, this is Austin Alderdice on the board. I had brought up a question before, and maybe you can jump into this a little bit, but in the case that we are forced to a hybrid or fully virtual format, what does that look like? Does that just mean we place a pause on things, or do you guys, how did you guys treat a virtual landscape? Because you talked in your video about being on campus.
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously we love being on campus with the kids, but virtual is a part of our reality right now. So all of our curriculum, when we develop it and adapt it, we are adapting everything for a virtual environment so that if we did have to go online, the students would not need supplies that are like excessive. Usually when we go online, then all of our activities become things that they have as common household items, things that they would already need for their normal school day, paper, markers or crayons or pens kind of thing, scissors and glue kind of thing. And we just adapt it for that, the specific needs of where the kids are and what they're doing, because we understand everybody's financial situation is in a different place. So we try to make it as accessible as possible for all the students.
Great. And you guys integrate pretty seamlessly with the school and how the scholars experience it. They don't have to, find like a different link or whatever to track you guys down. It's all pretty seamless. You figure all that out.
Yeah, absolutely. We do it all on Zoom. So some of our schools have their own Zoom link that they want us to use. Other schools, we just provide a private link for the student. So whatever is preferential to the school, that's totally up to you guys.
Great. Thanks very much.
Yeah. And we've already done, several Zoom courses just even since Christmas break, with some of our schools struggling to get back in person, just with, different testing requirements that they're requiring, or the snow days and things like that, or kids being in
Right.
quarantine. We've been able to really seamlessly adapt to that.
Great.
Hi, this is Sharifa. I have a question around, I think it's great that you would be working with the school staff to help develop that curriculum, identifying the particular needs. But if you can provide maybe a sample of topics or themes that some of the courses cover, that would be helpful. Like what type of leadership skills specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our database of just kind of what we do with the kids is, big in terms of what kind of topics we can provide. So some of our things is sometimes we look at, leadership perspective. Sometimes we're looking at leadership knowledge. So our leadership curriculum is built on kind of like a 6-ring model, and all of our curriculum and program mapping is built off of that. So our 6-ring model looks at leadership knowledge, so understanding what does it mean to be a leader in my school, in my community, in my family, attitude, will, and desire. Like, do I want to be a leader? What does that even mean? Like, do I have the desire to do that? And how does that look in my everyday life? Then we look at critical thinking, reasoning, and decision making. So how do I learn how to critically analyze or assess things, especially when it comes to decision makings, or how I'm creating a view towards the world, because values and beliefs are crucial at this young age. And then how do I make those decisions? Looking a lot at intrapersonal and interrelational skills. So who am I? So working on self-confidence, who am I as a person, as an individual, but then also how as an individual do I relate and engage with others? Because with the pandemic and students being just away from each other so long, they've really been struggling with the interrelational skills. So really working with a lot of the students on building healthy friendships. What does it mean to bully? What do I do if there's bullies? Just how do I engage with people? Looking at understanding communication, how do I communicate differently than other people? What are things that I need to think about when I'm communicating with people? What is the best means of communicating a specific message that I have? And then with our competition teams that we do, we also include an element of teamwork and project management into that. And so obviously all of our rings have kind of subcategories of different topics that go under those rings, that are different things that the kids are learning about relationships, about perspective, about active listening, understanding communication, coping skills, emotional intelligence, all of my body, my feelings, all of those different things kind of fall into one of those different categories. And we really work on the kids to not just do an activity, but really own the material themselves and how they engage and interact with that material, so that they're best able to hold on to it, retain it, and implement it into their daily lives.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. These are all great questions, by the way.
Just to follow up on that, how do you measure success? What are your indicators?
Yeah, definitely. So every school, like I said, we do it a little bit differently, but a lot of times we'll do interviews with the kids, talking with the kids, they do a lot of active reflection. during at the end of every class, we do active reflection. So we're looking at how are they engaging with it. And then over the long run, really reflecting on, what have you learned over this term? What have you engaged? So for the kids, it's a lot of qualitative stuff. With the staff and the staffing team at the school, really coming back and trying to get feedback with the staff of, how have you guys engaged with this material beyond just what they've done in our classroom? Have you seen changes or differences in certain students? Sometimes we do that through a survey to access some quantitative measurements, but some of it is also qualitative. And then if we have access to the families, then we also will chat with parents. When we have the capability, depending on the school, we like to keep open lines of communication with our families. And so we'll often send out a class summary of what did we do today? And what are some quick starters that you can talk to your student about to better understand and open that conversation with them, instead of a parent saying, well, how was leadership class today? It was good. Whereas like, hey, tell me about what you learned about this topic, or I heard that you did an activity that does this. Can you show me and talk to me a little bit about like what it is that you were doing, or why did you do it, or how did you, come up with that different idea, or how did you, build this thing, or, what emotion stemmed, or, what are those different elements of, what it is that they created or did that day to be conversation starters for the parents.
So from
This is
oh, sorry. No, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about, do you, or yes, in other schools, do you do during the day stuff and then maybe have a after school presence at the same time, or are those things kind of separate for you? Do you have, or do you have clients that kind of access both of those times?
Absolutely. We have clients that are the trifecta. They do after school, they do summer camp, and they do during the school day. To really be able to work with their kids and, provide, accessibility. Because we know that with after school extension, all of our students need leadership skills. All of them don't need after school extension and clubs. So when, we provide extension because it provides a unique learning opportunity for kids, but kids really gain the most and will implement the most when they're all learning the same thing. And so that's when we really like to tell schools like, if you're gonna only work a couple grade levels with us, or a couple classes with us, give us at least a whole grade level. That way, all of third grade, all of fifth grade, all of eighth grade, whatever grade it is all learning the same material. And that way, when they need to have a difficult conversation or they need to whatever, they are all kind of speaking the same language and have that same ground kind of base level of what they're doing and their approach.
Yeah, that sounds.
It's a lot harder for a kid to muster up the courage to have a difficult conversation when they are the only one, including their teacher, that understands a certain formulaic method of, addressing a conversation. So when they, their teacher and other people understand it too, they're a lot more willing to implement it during the actual school day.
Right. Yeah, very helpful. Thank you.
I just wanted to touch base on what you talked about in terms of sending communication home to parents and, measuring success. So if we were to do a 10-week module, at what point would you be conducting these assessments? And how frequently should we expect to have something sent home to the parents?
Yeah. So with the parents, we usually send home, like I said, we usually send home a weekly recap. And then depending on how long the session is, we would probably do a intro welcome email, get the parents to kind of know who we are. Then midway on like a 10-week thing, so around week 5 or 6, we would probably send something home to the parents. And then at the end of the program, we would probably do something else as well. So we might do, if it's a 10-week session, we might not do parents twice, but we might do parents once and then maybe administrators once, kind of thing, and be able to get like a diverse perspective of how we're seeing it reflected in the students.
Okay, thanks. So Alexis, please kindly make a note of that so we can have the timeline reflect.
Oh, sorry, my Alexa's going off. Sorry.
It's okay.
Will do.
Thank you.
Oh my God, that is the world we live in.
And also incorporate that into the terms of the contract as well.
We'll call her Ms. Giles while the other is in the room.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's like my default. That's
okay. It's okay.
No, that's okay. I was on a phone call with her the other day and my thing started going off and I was like, hold on.
That's
It
really
happens all the
funny.
time. I'm used to it.
right. That's the work we're in. All right. Do we have any more questions?
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for taking the time, and feel free, if you think of any other questions or whatnot, or if you specifically have topics or things you would like to see us address in a course, please let us know. And like I said, we do a lot of customization for the programs that we run. So definitely speak up. Like, feedback loops are huge for us, whether they're internal with just our staff or, with the kids, or, with you guys as well. So definitely feel free to reach out and share your opinions and thoughts.
Thanks so much.
Do you mind sharing, sorry, a little bit about your experience with classroom management, especially, when there's a new face in the school? It's normal, right? The student will just want to test the instructor.
Yeah, definitely. So classroom management, it really depends on the age, honestly. Our methods are going to change depending on the age of the students. Did you guys have a specific age group that you were thinking about addressing?
It's 5th and 7th.
5th and 7th. So, okay, so they're a little bit older. So with all of the classrooms, that first week is always working on bond and report and kind of working through the stages of team development. And so I don't know how familiar you guys are with like the storming, norming, performing, adjourning kind of thing, where, in the beginning, you get your class census, and that's kind of the beginning. And then you're getting into the classroom and the kids are looking at you like, who is this person? And we're looking at you like, we don't know who you are, but we want to have fun, kind of thing. And then you get into kind of the norming, where we really focus on what are classroom expectations for our class and for, the different classes that you have. And so that's where also we would be working with administration to make sure that when we come into your classroom, we're understanding the rules that have already been established in your classroom. Like, in the beginning of every term, you're always like, as the new guy, you're always like trying to figure out, like, I don't know, can they do this? At this school, they can do this. At this school, they can't. But we have a pretty good idea of the questions to be asking you guys in terms of expectations at your school, and then setting those expectations with the kids, especially with like 5th and 7th graders. They feel so much more empowered when they're a part of creating those norms and rules for the classroom. And us going through them on a weekly basis to just kind of remind them of, what are the expectations for this classroom environment, this culture that we're trying to create here together. And then in terms of behavior management, we really like to we always try to over pad our staff so that we have a good staff to student ratio. Usually around 1 to 10 is our kind of sweet spot for student to staff ratio. And by doing that, it really allows us to, if a student is having a struggling hard day and we need to take them out and kind of have like a side conversation with them in the hall, not as like a disciplinary thing, but like, let's go in the hall and jam, like, tell me what's going on. Because a lot of times we'll find that our students, when they're having a difficult day, really doesn't have to do with like the 60-minute or 20 minutes that they've already been in the class. It's something that's happened at home, happened in another classroom, or happened between a peer, or, all of those other things. And so a huge part of leadership is also helping empower the student to find their voice and their feelings and be able to communicate them and work through them together. And one of the things that our staff always promises our students is, we might not be able to always, we're not always going to side with you, and we're not always going to tell you that you're right, but we are always going to be people that are going to be here to listen to you and help you try to problem solve through that challenge together. And if we need to go together to figure out how to solve that problem together, we will. And so we really like to be those people that will help address behaviors together with the student, because behaviors, every student genuinely wants to thrive and do well. They just need the tools and support to do so. And sometimes, those happen in different ways. And so we really try to work in collaboration with the student to help them be successful in the classroom.
Thank you. Any other questions? Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad I was able to kind of connect with all of you. And do you guys have special needs students that are integrated into the classroom that will be with us? Okay. And do any of them need like one-on-one aids? Are they coming with aids? Or are they okay to just be mainstreamed into general pop?
If they have an aid, they will be coming with them.
Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, we definitely also like to be able to support people that have learning differences than us. And so we would also want to collaborate with you and kind of know ahead of time so that if we need to adapt our curriculum to support those students, we want to try to do our best to do that.
That's great. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And I think, based on the outcome of this evening's vote, if we do proceed, it'll be important to have those preliminary meetings at the school level just to get a good understanding of the expectations, know the students with special needs and what their IEP requires, and just really plan it out so it works well.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Well, unless anybody else has anything, I'm gonna jump back to what I was doing, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, sorry, just one last thing. Before this implementation, I think it may be helpful, whoever the instructor is should come first and meet the students. So that person's first day of instruction is not the first day they're seeing this new face.
Yeah, definitely.
That also helps with classroom management. So they know this person has been introduced, they anticipate this person's arrival. It's a different way, that person is received than someone just coming in day one and saying, we're going to do this today, and I've never met you before.
Yeah,
So.
Absolutely. And, even on the day one that we do, we really try to keep that day one fun, lighthearted, get to know each other type of thing. But yes, if we have the opportunity to meet the kids ahead of time so they have seen a face before they get into the classroom, that's absolutely super helpful.
Yeah, so the person knows the students and also knows the school. So the person is not looking lost the first day.
Oh, absolutely. We have standard operating procedures that will have you guys fill out a sheet that also guides my staff of where's the staff bathroom? What does dismissal look like? All of those things we'll have the school fill out as well. And then if we can take a tour ahead of time, which we usually like to do, we will do that as well.
Yeah, so we actually, I'm recommending that we include that as a requirement for the process. Before the person comes to conduct any form of instruction, these meetings and onboarding should take place.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, I think that's it, really, at least for me.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, again, for my third goodbye, I will talk to you guys soon.
All right, hey, three's a
Thanks,
strike.
Rachel.
Bye. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. I think that was helpful. Well, moving on to the CMO report, we will have the academic support update, and I'll just read all three so we can just flow right through. State of school report and financial update.
Okay, I won't take up too much time. So can we go back up just a little bit? Thank you. Yeah, so big thing is 10%. So when we started the school year, teachers created, well, not only teachers, but leaders first begin by identifying what our rocks are, our biggest rocks, what our professional goals are. And one of those professional goals were 10% increase in reading proficiency and math achievement. So that is a big deal that we keep going back to. So that's kind of the basis of my presentation today, is how the school is beginning to, or how school has been having discussions on owning that 10%. So every teacher has professional goals, and those professional goals include, again, increasing reading proficiency with 10% of that grade level, as well as math. Did I say it right? Reading and math proficiency for 10%. So if you go down just a little bit, it gives us where we started at with Hope for reading proficiency. And and I picked out these 3 grade levels because this is where most of the bulk of the struggle was for grades 1, 2, and 8. Ms. Pella, myself, and Mrs. Stone definitely had a moment to have a data talk that included reaching back into last school year, and looking at this school year where we started in the fall, and we identified about 3 grade levels that includes scholars and teachers that we've really felt needed some work. So that for reading, it was grades 1, 2, and 8. So you see where they are for their proficiency. So that means that's 35% in the fall that were proficient in reading, meaning they were comprehending independently at grade level. The same for grades 2 and 8, 38% of those scholars were able to independently comprehend grade level text. If you go down to the math proficiency, the 3 grade levels that stood up to us. Can you scroll down? Yeah. All right, so this is really where there was quite a bit of struggle coming in. So grade 3, that means that grade 3 had 4% of scholars at grade level. Grade 4 had 14%, and grade 5 had 13%. So these were the grade levels that we saw were really coming in struggling for various factors. When we really dug deeper into the data, I mean, various factors. And we had some courageous conversations about what that could be, but also making sure that we, I keep mentioning this, and Pella's probably tired of me saying it, but identifying our circle of influence as leaders, as well as how we can encourage teachers to identify that circle of influence. So if we scroll down a little bit more, from that 10%, the next step was to develop a scholar watch list. So what teachers are moving towards is identifying if we are at 4% proficiency in math, and I know my goal is to get to 14% for that grade level. We're not saying that is the end all be all, of course, because that's a low goal, but at least it's a starting point, if you will, to get to 14%. So with that being said, identifying for those 3 grade levels, how many scholars are needed to reach that 10%? So if you look here, I have for reading proficiency, these are the number of scholars that are needed to reach in that grade level. I should say how many more scholars are needed to reach whatever that goal is to get 10%. I hope I'm making sense. I'm a numbers person, and data
You're
is
making
my
sense.
jam. So
I'm tracking you.
okay. I get a little excited about data. So So this is what it would look like for reading proficiency. So in first grade, we need 12 more scholars. In second grade, we need 8 more. In eighth grade, we need 19 more. So then what happens is for reading proficiency, if we know we need 12 more scholars, well, who are the 12 scholars? So that is a conversation I'm excited that teachers are having, not just for the benchmark assessments, but even for those close reading assessments, for those topic quizzes and module assessments that scholars are doing in math. So they're constantly having conversations about who are these people. And if we know who those 12 scholars are, we're going to start tracking not just the 12 scholars, but that whole 14% for that grade level. Like, how are they doing throughout the year? Are they with LLI? Are they seeing those friends? Are we making sure they're doing Edgenuity? For our friends who may be SWD, that we know can meet the goal? Are they on iReady consistently and getting that support? What does their small group instruction look like? What is their guided reading instruction? Are they moving through? So it's almost, that's why we call it, and I think Melissa for this, it's called that watch list, that we're constantly putting our eyes on tracking these friends so that we can get to that goal and again, owning the data. So that's reading proficiency. And if we scroll down, I did the same for math. So for third grade, they would need 6 more scholars, fourth grade, 8 scholars, and fifth grade, 10 scholars. And do know that even though I say 6 scholars, it might be 4, but I just added a little cushion there to get us to 10, to reach that 10% goal. And then hoping we surpass that, to be honest with you. 10% is a starting point, if you will. So if you scroll down a little bit, here are some highlights from LLI. Now, do know this is constantly growing. I'm really excited. I checked in with interventionists this week. We have a weekly check-in and a weekly huddle. And I will tell you, they are 4 of the most amazing individuals I've ever gotten to work with. They are, gung-ho about making sure that these kids are growing. And it's to the point where I talk to other specialists in the network and they want to know what Hope is doing. They want to know how the interventionists are making growth and how they are working with scholars. So I can say with pride that our interventionists are the model for the work that is being done with scholars. So the interventionists gave me this data, but again, this is constantly growing. They are assessing scholars like every day. So we have some friends that were below level A. So that means they were basically like reading, like beginning readers. And now they're comprehending independently at levels B and D. We have some that moved all the way to D, which I think is awesome. We have some level A readers who are now comprehending at level C. If you scroll down a little bit, I have some friends that were working with another interventionist. He had some readers that were like level B, level C. They've now progressed to level E. We have some level F and G readers now progressing to level J. If you scroll down a little bit, we have some readers that are at level F that moved up. We have some readers that are at level E that moved up, level K that moved up. Recently, during our data talk, one of the third grade teachers was excited because he saw a scholar go from a level E to a level K. At our check-in, the interventionist who supports grades 3 to 5 says there is not one scholar who has not progressed with him. So that to me is good. And that means we're making some waves towards that 10%. So I'm excited for the work that has been done and just giving another huge shout out and a lot of recognition and stars and flowers and all that jazz to the interventionists and teachers as they're working together with having these data conversations. So if you scroll down.
Do you have a number of the students who moved from one letter to the next?
So I don't have a specific number because we're still like in the middle of assessing. Initially, they didn't have to do the BAS, but again, our interventionists are like, no, like we got to be sure the teachers know the levels with the guided reading. We got to be sure everyone's on track. So they're like really hauling to get it done. So I don't have a number, but what happens is there's a tracker that the entire school has access to. So teachers at any time, any day can log on and say, okay, well, here's Alexis. She started here at level A, but now I see, as of a week ago, she's at level E. Then we also have another tracker where our interventionists, as they're working with the kids in small group, where they do progress monitoring about every week. So they're asking comprehension questions, and they're tracking that data as well with the kids in the group. So teachers can actually go in there as well and see how their scholars are doing, to kind of, again, hitting towards that watch list piece.
Thank you. Would it be possible to share that?
Yes, yep.
Please.
So for our literacy.
I'm sorry, before you go on, just the font is really big. It's a lot to see. Some of us on the board are non-educators. So when you use acronyms like LLI, I mean, I just Googled it, but it should be
I'm sorry.
presentation as well. I can follow, but it takes me longer to catch up than some.
Understood. I'm sorry. So LLI is the literacy or level literacy instruction, excuse me. So basically it just means that is the curriculum. This is the name of the curriculum that the interventionists are using. And that's from a program called Fontes and Pinnell, which are heralded for the work they do with moving readers, no matter what level they are. So it's basically the curriculum they're using. The lesson plans come from the level literacy instruction. The library of books that the scholars are reading also come from that program.
Okay.
So I hope that answered.
And when you had the readers went from one letter to the next letter, is it following the alphabet?
Yes.
Order?
So
Okay.
yes, and I'm sorry about that too. So thank you for pausing me on that. But yes, the further up the alphabet that the scholars move, the more they're comprehending independently.
Okay, good. How do you guys engage parents in some of these things? Like what kids do? Sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but I'm just curious.
You're
like,
fine.
How do you get parents engaged in some of this stuff?
So the interventionists, as they're maybe starting new groups or bringing new kids into groups, they are reaching out to parents, and they're letting them know their progress and what they're doing to work with scholars, and then how they can support them. If we have scholars, and when we have scholars that move out of a group, maybe they've reached grade level, and we want to pull some other babies into before they're exited out, if you will, then the interventionist also reaches out to parents, and they let them know, just how their scholar is doing, that they have, progressed exceptionally well. These are things you can do to continue to work with them. So that's basically how they're keeping in contact with families, but that is a goal for them, that when they meet with new scholars or begin working with new scholars, I should say, that they do reach out to families to let them know. I would hate for a kid to go home and they're like, yeah, I was working with Miss Shaw, I was on reading help. That's a huge shock for parents. And they're like, what do you mean? So it's a goal for them before they begin. They do reach out to families.
Alexis, books go home, right? Do kids take their guided reading home?
No, guided reading books do not go home. No, but the great thing is that there's a lot of platforms we have where scholars can still be reading at home. So I know our interventionists have books that she does send home with kids to kind of reinforce what's being learned. But because it's not if you will, like a consumable piece, it's not something that we can send home. So they're using those books next year and the year after that.
No, right. I just thought they'd come back, but maybe that's a risk we don't want to take.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would.
Okay.
I wish, but I'm not sure. But I know that there are platforms that teachers are using to make sure that kids are reading at home and to support what the interventionists are doing.
Okay.
Carrie, thanks for starting that line of questioning. Alexis, I myself also am not in this world, so this is all a little bit over my head as well. My only question is, and forgive me, I hope this doesn't come across as a faux pas, but in terms of, you said that you're assessing them every day, the interventionists also do the assessments, or are the assessments done by another third party?
So the progress monitoring is done with scholars that the interventionist is working with. So if I am your interventionist and we're in a small group and I meet with you daily, I'm going to monitor your progress at least weekly to see how you're doing. If I need to step back or I need to find another goal to work with you on, and that data is shared with teachers. So it is done weekly.
Okay.
And that is again done by the interventionist. And then there are the, I don't feel like I'm overwhelming, but that baseline assessment that also is done by interventionists. So that lift is not done by teachers. We just make sure that the teachers have access to the information as they're supporting scholars too.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
I was just going to add into that progress monitoring to kind of help you understand it's we call it a running record, but it's actually as students are reading books at their level, we're listening in to students and actually looking at the words they're reading correctly. We're writing down their errors and then we're analyzing their errors so we know what strategies we have, because an error is not a bad thing if they're correcting it. Like, what strategies are they using to correct it? And then we also use that information to then teach them other reading strategies to help them read, if that makes sense. I thought that might be a little helpful to explain that piece.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, that's really good to know.
And Carrie, thank you so much for bringing up the, the what is it called? The jargon factor or the lingo. I wanted to mention that too, so that's very helpful, just for us to keep in mind, especially with us having more board members come on as well. So not everyone will be familiar. And if it's been mentioned once, it'll be helpful to just continue at every meeting to just assume it's new language to everybody. So
yeah. So if there's no more questions or comments, I'm going to proceed with the piece about the guided reading. So on January 3rd, teachers received a full day training for a guided reading implementation. Again, that came from the Fontes and Pinnell program as well. And they also were able to receive another library of books for grade levels kindergarten through 5. There are a multitude of books that have been unpacked and inventoried for teachers to use. They're getting support throughout the week. They can meet with them. There you see the boxes. Yeah. And those are not all of the boxes. Those are boxes that I have probably taken out, inventoried, and put away for put up for teachers to utilize. But basically they have, again, it's a library of books. I mean, that it's a whole library of books. It's amazing how much they have access to, on top of teacher guides and lessons. So there's been a lot of conversation about how to implement the lessons, how to work with scholars, when to work. I mean, we get to the nitty gritty about how the small groups should look. And so now we're going to start going in, and now we've done implementation. We're moving forward with monitoring and supporting our teachers with guided reading. They are excited about the program to have this type of support, because they did not really have these much tools at their fingertips before. So I'm excited, and I'm glad they're excited to see the progress they're going to be able to support scholars. And I wanted to add for this piece about our Children First, our student support team. I don't know if you know the gentleman there, but that is Mr. Fennell. He is our Dean of Culture and Climate. And let me tell you, him and Mr. Haley, who's also our behavior tech, you can scroll down and look at the pictures too. I was taking some. That is the school store. So every, I want to say every quarter, Mr. Haley and Mr. Fennell purchase items based upon student interest. And the scholars can use their bucks that they get from Kickboard, which is like a way to positively reinforce behaviors in the building. And they earn like, it's not money, but it's like money that they earn. And then they use that to purchase items in a school store. And just to see the kids as they went and grabbed the kids and brought them up to the school store, it was so exciting. The kids were so happy, and it motivated kids to kind of set goals for themselves. Like, oh, I got $50 this time. I'm going to try to get 60 next time so I can get this, when I come to the school store again. So it was great. I mean, there were things from snacks to pencils, like there's some really great stuff in there. So I just wanted to acknowledge them, but it also allowed the teachers to make sure that they were using this piece, because you can imagine the kids are like, did you give me points? Did you give me points for this? And so we're seeing an increase in usage of the program, which is great. So just really excited to see that, again, being able to motivate and encourage our scholars and make sure we're reaching them from a holistic approach. And I want to say that, what, can you scroll down a little bit? I want to say that was all I had. Yep, that was it for me. I don't know if anyone had questions, comments. Thank you, Christina.
I have a few questions. I'll just ask all at once. Do you mind sharing some details about the inventory process, how items are actually, you know, just tracked and made sure that we actually have a document of items for inventory purposes? And also the learning specialists, how do they contact parents? Is it by email, phone, Parent Square? So those are my two questions.
Okay, so I'll start with the inventory piece first. So Fondas and Pinnell, very organized. And so every grade level has a list of books with their level, like the letter level we saw earlier in the presentation. There are, like, a grade one will start at A and it'll go to G, if you will. So they'll have all the level books for A, all the level books for B, and they'll have the titles and the number of books. So what I'm doing is I'm adding that into a system so that we have the list of books that are there. And then when the teachers come to meet with the coaches, they're able to say, hey, Ms. Giles, I would love to check out Little Red Riding Hood, which is a level G book. So the coach actually checks out the text for the teacher, make sure they have it on hand, and make sure they have the lesson as well. They review that together and make sure they're comfortable for implementation with scholars. And then the teachers then bring that book down after, I want to say about 2-3 days, if you will, so they can go on to the next passage.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and so the second question was about,
how
I forgot.
learning specialists communicate to the parents.
So it's usually by phone call. So I think you're referring to those reading interventionists.
Yeah.
I want to say it's by phone call. They're not doing by email. They definitely call them and reach out to them based upon the numbers they get from either teachers or for Power School, and introduce themselves and just let them know what their goals are, and then proceed into how they plan to work with their scholar.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
How's the response on the parents and how has that been so far?
I've only had one occasion where a parent declined the support, and I felt like, that's parent right. I did ask the interventionist like exactly how the conversation went, what details were provided, but we've only had one parent that were like, no, they weren't interested. So we did leave that space open for another scholar, and their parent agreed, and so we moved forward.
Okay.
But it's been receptive.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Pella.
Thank you, Ms. Giles. Good evening, everyone. I'll be providing some school leader updates for January, as well as for December, as well as parts of January. Okay, as we spoke before, we do have a laser focus. We do know how important it is to retain, recruit, and enroll families. So in that partnership with our enrollment specialists, as well as myself and our parent engagement task force, we've really tried to make sure that in quarters 2 through 4, that in our events and our activities, that we're thinking about retention, recruitment, and enrollment. We have to ask ourselves with each event, is this event or activity going to retain our families, or will this event or activity recruit families? And being intentional about those activities that we've put in place to make sure that we are doing one of those two things. Sometimes it can be very tempting to just do tons of activities. It's called what they call Christmas tree schools, where there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. But if you're not intentional about being strategic on if that event or activity is going to keep the students we have, or recruit potential families that we hope to get. And so that has been our focus and our driving force with our efforts around retention and recruitment. If you could scroll up or down. Sorry. So in our last meeting, there was a need, and I think it was very important that we develop some SMART goals. That was some input that was given to me in our last meeting. And so we did do that, and I just wanted to provide a status based on those SMART goals and where we are. So we did establish a goal of increasing current enrollment by 30% in grades pre-K through third by June by enrollment, like the end of the school year. And what we plan to do, or what we've done to make sure that that's happening, we have pre-K play dates that have been scheduled, both virtual and in person. We have pre-K through third grade, spring play day in the park pop-ups plan. We know that it is, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, but we have strategically found schools or parks that are in the areas where we have some competing schools. And those pop-ups are going to be times where students and families, potential families, can come out, learn about the school while their children play. And so those things are in the works and have been developed by our enrollment coordinator. Marketing materials, making sure that they reflect our new spring direction. And in that, having a heavy push for Phalen University, as well as Summer Advantage. So one of the things that we know, as DC is super competitive, and in the charter world, you have to have something that other charter schools don't have. And you have to make sure that you are very clear on what that is. And we really, really feel that Phalen University, which is an opportunity for families to learn various skills to become more economically marketable. We think that that's really something that is going to draw interest of our current families as well as potential families. And that's a part of our retention strategy. Those families that are currently with us, also knowing that there are opportunities and that our goal is to provide for the entire family as a unit, is really important to us. Also, there's a heavy push for Summer Advantage. So we were able to get, I think we have 77 families whom we're still trying to get their intent to return forms for. So, which is a big difference in what we've experienced in the past. And the way that we've been able to do that is attaching Summer Advantage and the ability to be able to be a part of Summer Advantage to being re-enrolled. And so that is one of our big efforts in making sure that we not only know the families who intend to return to help us with planning for the year, but not just those who intend to return, but also for those families who potentially would like to come to our school. We think that this is something that they need to be aware of. Let's see, our next SMART goal is to increase parents' nest engagement by 20%. We think that it's important to communicate with parents on a regular basis. We actually had a parents' nest meeting today before our board meeting. And our goal is to increase by 20%. We actually met that goal. We actually had, since this meeting, we've increased by 5 additional parents. So if we had met in December, we were at 8 parents. And now tonight we were at 13 parents who actually came. It was very beneficial because they had expressed some things that we hadn't thought of. We think in the school, we're hitting every corner, and it's just really important to make sure that we are having that communication with parents. And even though only 13 showed up, it still made an impact because a lot of those concerns or questions of those 13 are a reflection of the entire parent community at Hope. So we are rock and roll with Eagles Nest. We also, as an incentive to hopefully pull some more of them in, we were able to give a $50 gift card to Walmart. And we were also able to recruit 2 parents to join the board, one for middle school and one for elementary. So we'll be sending that information up soon. Another goal that we have was to build a strong virtual visibility by January of 2022. We didn't quite quantify it yet. I'm working with the team to quantify what that means. So if we're going to have 5 posts a week, what are the posts going to be? We're still kind of working through making sure that when we are posting our students, that we have tons of pictures, but we have to be very careful about posting our students because of privacy issues. And so we're working through some of that before we actually develop a SMART goal that's realistic. So in terms of social media posts, we have posted a lot where we could with our winter events, which are going to continue, as well as an open house that's coming up for as we prepare for enrollment season and getting more students in our seats in our school. We also have a very ambitious goal. We are a very creative group of people. We wanted to do a Hope Farmers Market and pop up, but we've run into some snafus with licensing and all the legal stuff that go around it. So even if it's not something that we're able to do this spring, we do want to find ways to bring the community in. Ward 5 is growing, and the more attraction or the more visibility that our school has in the community, that can mean enrollment, as well as just getting our name out there for what we're trying to accomplish for families. We can go down a little bit more. I'm going to skip through some of this. I know we've been on here for a long time and I love talking. So I'm going to talk really quickly about our enrollment and recruitment strategies. And I think I'm just going to share more toward the end. So one of the things that our enrollment specialists and myself and our parent engagement task force have really been talking about is how to get more students, right? We know it's competitive. And so what we've been charged with is looking at potential school closings. I mean, when schools close, those are students who are now displaced. There's also, teachers and staff who will be looking for jobs. And we know that not every school that closes, it's not necessarily because of staffing issues. You can find a few diamonds in the rough. And it also would be an incentive for schools to want to partner with us. So if we're offering them something, we may be able to get something in return. So we have begun to look at the school closures within the various wards close to our school. It has been a challenge, honestly, to get the closings for this current school year. It seems that DC PCSB has kind of given schools a little bit more flexibility because of the pandemic. So we don't have as many school, we don't have school listings for the most recent years, like this coming school year. But what we have been able to do within those schools that have closed is use that as an opportunity to market in those areas to parents who may have lived in that area or frequented that area because their children went to that school that closed, in terms of putting out our yard signs. So that effort has still been fruitful. It didn't work out exactly the way we wanted because we're only able to get school closures from the 2019-20 school year, but we're not able to get the list of school closures for the up and coming school year to build those partnerships. Also with strategic wards and events, so being strategic about those wards that have the grade levels that we're trying to target, and making sure that our events are marketed to students, our families in those areas. And then also our school virtual events, making them open potentially to the public. So we have Friday assemblies every Friday, and making it open to the public, meaning prospective families or families that are interested in our school. Let's scroll down and I'll determine if we're gonna go ahead and move past. I think we talked a little bit about this in the slides prior, Again, some of our strategies for current families are, again, Phalen University Summer Advantage. Also, this just highlighting the 149 intent to return forms. That was just based on a one-day effort. Once we attached it to Summer Advantage, we were able to get those answers pretty quickly. So we know what our families' plans are. We did have some non-decided, but over, I believe it's 86% of our families so far of the 149 are intending on returning. Additional engagement opportunities for families, a communication push from admin and teachers, making sure that we're intentional about communicating with our families on a consistent and regular basis. In a school, there's so many things that are happening, COVID, it just, you name it. But just bringing ourselves back and making sure after the holidays that we're keeping up with the expectations about communication, doing those sunshine calls. Those are the things that really stand out for parents as they're making decisions on whether or not they're going to keep their children at home. You can join us tomorrow. We have a Friday recognition assembly that will happen every other Friday. One of the things that we've learned is that parents will show up when their kids are being recognized. Even if they don't know if they're being recognized, they want to see. And if they're not, we're going to hear about it. And so, as just in terms of being strategic around retaining our families that we have invited them to those assemblies that will happen every other Friday. Our dean of students, and our middle schoolers will be facilitating those Friday assemblies where we'll recognize students for kickboard points, student of the week, as well as academic recognitions, just small incremental recognitions based on how they're achieving on a bi-weekly basis. And then we're also beginning on February 10th, we're starting our spring Thursday clubs. Those clubs will happen every Thursday, just as a gradually getting back into it. Hope is used to having clubs every day, but with the pandemic, this is just a way for us to gradually get back into the swing of that. And so Beta Club starts on February 10th, student government, games, mentoring, and digital yearbook. So students will have an opportunity, we have a sign-up day coming up. Well, they'll be able to pick a club. We're focusing on grades 4 through 8. And we have our teachers in place who have volunteered, which is amazing, to support those clubs every Thursday from 3:30 until 4:30. So we're excited about that. And let's see, it is 7:12, so we'll skip past this. This is easy to read and understand. We can go down to slide 29. This is easy to understand as well. And we can continue to go down to slide 30. Trying to remember. This is easy as well. These are events that are coming up. We did have hot chocolate with Hope, and all the donuts got eaten and all the hot chocolate was consumed. So I would say it was a success. Our families had an opportunity just to feel, with the pandemic, it can kind of feel a little cold at times because you can't come in unless you're tested. And, everybody is still operating under making sure that they don't contract COVID. And so it was a little cold outside, but it was a success and our parents did enjoy it. And you should see some pictures popping up on our social media pages. All right, and the very end, there's just some examples of parent engagement, social emotional development, and social media visibility. If you just scroll, there are some photos there. I know sometimes being on the board, it's hard to know what's happening because you can't see. We're in it every day. This is just an example of our award ceremony, where even though we weren't able to do it in the in-person fashion, we were able to involve our parents and do our awards assemblies virtually for our families. This was a dad that kept photobombing. It was just funny. He kept photobombing and just having something to say. He had several kids in the school and he was super proud. So we just thought that was funny. For social emotional learning, our kids have had to adjust to coming back to school. And in that, you have to learn how to interact with your peers. So just as an effort to stay positive, to put our motto into action of work hard, stay humble, be kind. We have launched an initiative called Kind Jars. It's kind of like if you're familiar with bucket fillers. Don't be a bucket dipper, be a bucket filler, and filling up the person's bucket with positive affirmations that you've noticed about them. So can go on. And then this is our some examples of social media. If you're able to click the link, we don't have to do it now, but if you're not following our Instagram, our Facebook, I did provide a link here so that you could follow us, follow the school, and you can kind of keep up with what we're posting. And I believe that's the last slide. Oh, okay. So here are some examples of what you will find if you are able to visit our social media pages. We have our mascot, myself, and our dean. We have our teachers during a twin day. You won't see many students because we're just being cautious about posting our students on social media. But what we're trying to do is capture what parents would potentially encounter and the positive interactions of staff until we can determine and make sure that we are not posting children against the will of their parents. Here's Ms. Giles already shared this, some of our PBIS in action with kickboard butts. And that's it.
So I have a question about the will of parents and postings. I was under the impression that we addressed that last year by adding the permission to my school DC, because posting students on a school website is, I mean, it's a privacy issue if you don't have their permission, and that's even from OSSI, but it's not an anomaly. All schools do that. You know, when you look at different schools in the city, they post their students all the time because parents want to know, like a prospective parent wants to know, what am I getting from the school? What's actually happening at the school? So the privacy issue is valid, but what exactly are we doing to address that issue by getting the permission, which is what the law requires, and how soon are we going to do that? Because we just need to be very intentional. Is there a philosophy on campus not to post, or do we just need to address this privacy issue by getting the forms out, which can be done in 24 hours? I just think that I definitely appreciate the updates on social media. I actually look at it quite often. And I see a lot of updates, and that's great. And I see a lot of the teachers. I haven't really seen any students, so thanks for bringing that up as the reason why no student has been posted. I also see more flyers as well, which if we're also using that as an information channel, which is great, then maybe today when there was a 2-hour delay, it would have been good to post that as well. So a couple of schools in DC did that today. From their social media, they said, oh, there's a 2-hour delay. But I mean, a lot of improvement, seriously. I'm excited, but I just really want to understand, like, what exactly are the key action steps that we will take to address this privacy issue, because it's not that big of an issue. It's not posting students doing something bad, right? It's posting students learning, and which is, once again, it's not an anomaly. Now, culture, you know, things shift. Maybe 5 years from now, it may be a bad thing, but today, it's actually a bad thing not to know what students are doing in the school, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So how are we addressing that?
So I think the next action steps would to be, you know, of course, to make sure that as we hit enrollment season, that's a part of the application process. As a quick turnaround, it is something, you know, because I do want to be able to capture our kids. And so the next step for us would be to get those forms out to parents. And if there are any parents who do not want their children to be a part of any visualization of the school, I think it's probably going to be the easiest thing and the quickest turnaround for parents to notify us if they do not want their children to participate rather than trying to get everyone to respond. That way we can just pull those students who we know, if we see these children in a picture, don't post it. So that's something honestly that can go out on Monday.
That's great. Thank you. And I've seen that, that's a great approach. And honestly, my experience, it's very rare that a parent would say, I don't want my
Yeah,
child.
it's
Sometimes they get excited, like they share with their families, so
yeah.
I think that would be great. So that's good to know that it will go out on Monday, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks or week and a half, we can start seeing children. So for example, the post with the Christmas doors, it would have been fun to just see the kids. I mean, I want to know that if they look happy, right? If I were a parent, do these students actually look happy to be here? Those are, so things like that will be very, not from a marketing standpoint, but even from a community standpoint, right? Just seeing themselves as a reflection of the school, it gives them a sense of belonging as well.
I agree.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? No.
Yeah,
I was quick.
Oh, sorry. Austin, is that you?
Yeah, that was me. I was just going to quickly follow up to those points, and that now is kind of the time to ease into it with mask policies in place as well. It'll be, less of an ask of parents, and it might be a little bit less awkward, especially if all the kids are masked up in some of the pictures.
That's true, because you can't really tell who they are. Maybe you can see the happiness at least in their eyes. So it'll be a quick turnaround. We'll have it turned around by next week.
Thanks, Ms. Bella.
You're welcome.
I just had a quick question. Earlier you mentioned the in-school store. I know that's a idea that was at the other campus a couple of years ago. Have you guys put any? I know it's new, but have you guys put any thought into it on how can it evolve? Could it be an opportunity to teach entrepreneurship to the 7th and 8th graders? Is it a way to incorporate math classes into the store concept, or financial literacy? So, if it continues, maybe it can evolve. I'll have ideas to have it evolve into something else than just a store.
I think that's a good idea, even maybe from the accounting perspective. So the thing that I like about Kickboard is that, kids actually receive a check. We're not balancing checkbooks anymore, but there may be a way for, I think the entrepreneurship part is a good idea, because our kids are very creative. They make lip glosses and they're making slime and doing all these kind of things anyway. So I honestly didn't even think about that. But as we're trying to expand the leadership among our school, just being intentional about student government and the new partnership we have, that's a really good idea. So this is why we got to meet with parents more regularly, because you guys think of things that we just don't think about. So I will talk to our Dean of Culture and Climate, who he and our behavior interventionists are the brainchild and mastermind behind our student store. And they're always thinking of things as well. But we did not think about the entrepreneurship track, and they're going to be excited about that. So that's a good idea. Thank you.
That's awesome. And it builds into our, what makes us unique. And I think that's another goal we could set for the upcoming academic year, just really coming up with a list of what makes us unique, and to put that on our website and our social media periodically, why hope? And maybe some quotes from parents too at the next Parents Nest. Why did you choose hope? And get quotes from them. And we can run that as a campaign, why I chose hope. And the teachers as well, why I chose hope. Students, why I love hope. Okay. And some may come with photos, some without photos, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for everything. Great job. Do you have any other questions, comments? Thank you.
No.
Thank you, Ms. Pella.
Okay, you're welcome. Ooh, you're welcome.
All righty. Now we have the financials, and I'm actually looking at the time. We will finish in the next, at the most 10 minutes. Please bear with us. Eva?
So on the financials, and I'll keep it nice and brief here. Since we review the financials, Dan really reviews the financials in depth at the finance committee meetings. We're just going to hit on the key points here and really summarized in the top section here that the projection is to end the year at 116 days cash. So you can see that at the end of the year, the 3.35 million. If you look where we are right now, we're tracking just slightly below budget, but that really catches up. That's a timing of when grant funds are received. The gross margin forecasted to be at the -18. That is really largely influenced by a one-time adjustment on the lease for the Lamond, the lease adjustment there. So that's the most important pieces. Cash, of course, is huge. If you look at the year-to-date financials, looks like we're doing really well, ahead in revenue, below in expenses. Important to be really careful there because it's only 5 months into the year and there's a big timing. If you look at the forecast piece, has us forecasted to be slightly better than budget by the end of the year. So just 100,000 or so. So I'll stop there for any questions because we do them in detail.
I think we're good, Eva.
Thanks, Eva. I know we had talked about giving an update on enrollment numbers. Do we have those today? On student enrollment. Okay, I'd like to add that as a follow-up action item. Who might be the person responsible for helping to report on student enrollment? Susan, do you want to talk about that a bit?
And I was going to add, I thought that was in Miss Pellet, but I thought we had added that in the Miss Pellet's report and when she was going through and re-enrollment and enrollment efforts. And again, I don't know if Miss Pellet can hear us right now.
So that data, the 149 scholars, I believe, from my understanding with who had submitted the re-enrollment, but I think it'll be helpful to compare that against the students who are currently enrolled and perhaps touch base with EdOps, who also supports with the data points and enrollment. There's a particular way those numbers are captured that will be helpful to present at the board meeting.
Got it. Yep, we'll add that in. We'll make sure that's in that report.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right, 149 intent to return. Thanks, Christina. So we need this captured in a particular way where it shows you intent to return versus current enrollment. And if there's any decline, then it'll be helpful to report on that as well. And thanks for reporting on attendance. Could we also add discipline to the reporting just to make sure that we're tracking numbers of suspensions, if any? And if we have 0, then let's just say it's 0, but it'll be helpful to report on that as well, please.
I can connect with our enrollment specialist tomorrow. That number has actually gone up where that 149 has gone up, and I'll make sure that we can compare it to the number of students that we have. We also have numbers on any parents that may have selected to not return, so we can also make sure those numbers are included. We do have that information.
Yeah, it's helpful. Thanks.
And if we have any new enrollees as well, sometimes some people still enroll at this time of the year. So if there are any new students, if there are any withdrawals, that'd be helpful to know as well.
Okay. Yeah, we do have to communicate that weekly anyway. So that's something that will be easy we communicate that to Phalen. So that will be easy to add as well.
Okay.
We got 2 new 7th graders that are starting in a couple weeks.
That's great. Congrats.
Yeah.
Awesome. And honestly, I feel like once you start to post more photos, you get more students, because sometimes students are the ones who say, I want to go to that school. But if you don't know how it looks, they're not, I mean, they don't have anything to want to look at or to want to have, you know, but when you see your peers and students your age playing in front of the school, you know, like that new facility in front of the building, then they would say, oh my gosh, I want to be there. You know, we have a new science lab. Let's post that with students doing experiments. Oh my goodness, mom, I want to wear that lab coat. You know, it's those things that would make a parent or even a student want to go there, you know? So that's, all right, great, thank you. So we're done with the updates. We, board members, are we inclined to vote in on break the norm this evening? Or move it to next month?
I think, was it Eva who had remarked on,
The contingency?
so we can do it as, yes, contingent on the funding. I would be inclined to vote on it with that contingency in place.
Okay, that's helpful. All right, so I'd like to ask for a motion to vote on approving Break the Norm Leadership Program at Hope Tolson with a contingency, you know, based on the availability of funding.
And do we need to discuss kind of which plan we're going for, or is it a yay, nay at this point?
No, it's open for discussions. Yes, let's discuss. Absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, what plan? My recommendation, based on what we've talked about, I think the lowest was the 11,520. And we've talked about a pilot. I would recommend that we go with the lowest and just see how our students will respond to the program. I mean, considering that they're in a lot of schools in DC, and I really haven't heard anything, you know, that gives concern. I think it will be well accepted and implemented at Hope Tolson, but just to be judicious about funding and even integrating new programs into a school, I think a pilot makes perfect sense. So, and that's the lowest on the budget.
I agree with that. How many people, it was 2 grades, right? With that amount, how many students would that be in the pilot?
So if it's 11,520 divided by 18.
I can get that number for you. I have it.
Thank you.
Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
What, you're eating? I support it.
This is Austin. I support it as well, but I support at the $11,000 level that we were talking about as a pilot program. But if the staff feels that that's not good enough, I'm also curious to hear their thoughts about that.
I agree.
Agreed, yeah.
Carrie, I agree
So,
with you.
well, so for 3rd grade, we have 30 I'm sorry. The 11,000 for 2 grade levels, we're looking at 5th and 7th grade. So for 5th grade, we have 35 scholars. In 7th grade, we have 29 scholars. It's a total of 64 scholars.
Great. Do we think that that's sufficient for a pilot?
Oh, yeah. I mean, at least from my research experience, I think so, but I'll let the staff talk about school. The Hope context.
I guess I'm the staff. I don't know if it's fellow wants to add in. But I guess we're just looking at 2 grade levels. I think they intentionally picked those grade levels. But for a pilot to start with 2 grade levels, especially being 5th and 7th grade, I think that's a pretty good start. I don't know if Pella wants to add to that.
I think it would be a good start. You know, we want to see how the program works before we invest in it. When we invest, it's also children's time. So I want to make sure that it's something that I think 2 classes is enough for now. And then if it's something that we are pleased with and our students are pleased with, then we would increase it from there. But the financial risk, not having experienced it yet and how it's going to impact our students, I think it's a good amount. If we were to add, I would say, so we have a range. We have middle school, we have, upper primary, and maybe adding even younger grade if we want to have like a full spectrum to see how it works with middle you know, primary or upper primary and then primary. But I think 2 is good. But if we were to increase it, I would increase it with a lower grade.
I mean, it's a pretty significant percentage of students. I mean, it's reasonable to see how it goes and see how this new entity can kind of integrate itself into things. I mean, maybe we should, I mean, when we do the budget for next year, you know, I know we won't have this information yet, like on how we think things are going. Well, we'll have some, but you know, we should, you know, if we're even remotely pleased, we should consider it for next year and for summer school and just kind of like, or aftercare, whatever, and just kind of build some flexibility in there. But I'm good with, this is Susan, by the way, I'm good with, yeah, the smallest of the options for now, pending offsets, which I think we'll be able to find.
I agree. This is Austin, pilot and build.
This is Carrie. I agree as well.
Thank you, everyone. So may we have a formal motion? Well, no, the discussion was great and much needed, right? So
I have a general question. I agree. I think the idea is great, but it sounded like when the recommendation was first proposed, it was proposed with those 2 classes in the first place. And then there was a request to have a pilot. So what exactly is a pilot at this point if it's still with those same 2 recommended classes? Wouldn't the pilot be a smaller population of those 2 classes?
I mean, I think I used that term. I was really just saying, in my mind, I think we were in the midst of a conversation about, you know, a variety of different options. And I think I was just trying to indicate that start small and support for the one that was on the table that was the smallest, which is the one that's between $11,000 and $12,000.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I meant, but I don't know how everyone else understood it.
Yeah, I okay, that's fine. I just wanted some clarity around that because I thought that there was some desire to start smaller than the original 2 classes proposed. But okay, that's either way works for me.
So are we waiting for a motion?
yes.
I'll try. I'm fading, so I'm just going to try to collect myself here for a sec. So I move that the board approves a pilot, which is the smallest option, the lowest option, grades 5th and 7th, for the norm program, and yeah, pending confirmation that there's financial, you know, there's room for that financially. That was really all over the place. I'm sorry, Rebecca, but it's
Okay.
the best I can do.
Thank you.
I second the motion. Is it Sharifa?
Thank you, Sharifa.
Welcome.
So I'll just take a roll call vote. Susan?
Yes, I support.
Approve.
Approve.
Thank you. Sharifa?
I approve.
Thank you. Austin?
I approve.
Thank you. Neha?
I approve.
Thank you. Carrie?
I approve.
Thank you. And I also approve. So the board has approved Break the Norm program contingent upon.
Sorry, I got the name wrong. That's just so weak. I just
You had the words. We understand. So thank you everyone. Christina, do we have any old business, any action items from last month to share, please?
just for a moment, I'll take a look at the minutes.
Okay, in the meantime, I'd like to ask Carrie and Austin to please introduce our prospective board members who have visited us today, and would like to hear from them as well. And we will wrap up our meeting.
Okay, so we've invited Allison Barr and Anissa Bailey to join today's meeting as potential board candidates. I will, sorry, I can't find the bio, pull it up earlier. Anyway, Allison brings a financial background. She's worked in education before, and we're hoping that she's met with some of the board members already. We're hoping that she really considers this opportunity. And Anissa Bailey is a teacher. She's currently at Monteverde Graduate Power University. So she's still early in her career. She spent some time teaching overseas and thought this would be an excellent opportunity to have a teacher in the classroom on the board as well. She's also just exploring the opportunity with us today. So, Allison or Anissa, do you want to say hi? Anything quickly?
Hi, I'm Anissa. Thank you guys for having me. It was really wonderful to just kind of see how this whole process works, and just to see everybody's dedication and having the best outcomes for your students. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Anissa.
And hi, this is Allison. I agree. The engagement and the questions have been great to see and experience, and it's really great to meet all of you. I'll try to go on video. My internet is a little shaky, so it tends to cut out when I put the video on.
Okay, great. And also, I know we usually meet afterwards. For Rebecca, I know I've asked everyone if they have a few minutes after we officially close the meeting, just in case you wanted to use this as an opportunity to say hello as well, privately.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carrie, and welcome Anissa and Allison. We appreciate you joining us this evening. Board members, do you have about just 5 minutes to have a closed session to chat with our visitors today, please, after we look at the action items? Okay, thank you. All right, action item. So we talked about the updates in enrollment. So, thanks. We did have an update on enrollment today, as well as the activities. We've just asked for more specificity, so that's helpful. We also talked about data being disaggregated by grade levels, which was today. We also need additional data once we're done with testing. So we'll add just that as a running action item. We also talked about making the goals SMART and a list of who is responsible. I think we saw the dates included today. To a certain extent, I'm assuming the task force is wholly responsible. Is that the expectation?
Can you please repeat that question? My copier machine is making noise and I didn't hear it.
Sure. So in terms of making making SMART goals on enrollment, I just wanted to clarify that we saw some dates today which are helpful, but I'm not sure if we actually saw the names of the persons facilitating the different tasks. So are we agreeing that we're just holding the entire task force accountable, or should we expect to have names attached to those different items at the next board meeting?
It's something that encompasses the entire task force, but it drives our decisions as we're trying to work together as a team to make improvements or to reach our target. But if specific names, some of the persons on the task force are teachers. I would say just in terms of accountability, it would probably be myself and our enrollment specialist. But we can share the members of the task force if you guys are curious.
No, it's okay. I think I just wanted to make sure that someone is responsible because, so let's say social media, for example, like who's responsible for posting?
Our enrollment specialist, she does all the posts.
Spell checking, proofreading more so. Who's responsible for proofreading? Who's responsible for doing the research to find out about the the, what's it called again? The farmer's market you plan on having. So I think it's helpful to have the members of the task force volunteer to say, I'm gonna own this process. And other people will work with me. When I need help, I can send out a blast to ask for help, but I'm leading this process so that even when they come to meetings, they're reporting back to you, oh, I did this research on this. Oh, we sent out 3 posts today, or we took 5 photos today. So really having each member of the task force own a particular like mini project, I think will be helpful. So we also know who's responsible.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, cool, thank you. Is that it, Christina?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All righty, so I'll just officially ask, do we have any public comments? Any other comments? Okay, so we will now take a motion to adjourn the meeting. And are we all ready to close today's meeting? So before we do officially, I just want to say thank you, everyone. And for our guests, our meetings no longer usually takes this long. We just had a lot of questions about Break the Norm, and I think just spending time to fully understand the program and fully setting expectations, maybe not fully at this point, because there'll be more expectations at the school level, but setting expectations with the partner was time well spent, but typically we're done by 7 p.m. So just wanted to say that in case you're saying, oh my gosh, this is a lot of time. That's not the norm. All right. So before we close the meeting, I'd like to request a motion of the board to move to a closed meeting to discuss business matters around board membership under section 2-575 B12. May I have a motion, please?
Someone going, okay, this is Carrie. I move to close today's board meeting and move the board to closed session to discuss board membership under section 2-75 B12.
Thank you, ma'am. May I have someone second the motion?
This is Neha. I can second the motion.
Thank you. So we'll need a roll call just to know who's going into the closed session. And Christina would just need to document who goes into the closed session. That part does not need to go on the website, but that part still needs to be documented in our on our records. All right, so Carrie?
Here.
Thank you, Neha.
Here.
Thank you, Susan.
Here.
Thank you, Sherry.
Here.
Thank you, Austin.
Here.
Thank you. So the meeting has been officially adjourned. We will meet again next month, God willing. And thank you, everyone. God bless. Have a good night.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.